you mentioned the tape. The public, as well as the jury, has some strong opinion regarding the R. Kelly alleged sex tape, which the prosecution thought it was a slam dunk. Some people thought it was a turning point because of the alleged visual evidence. However, it was opposite of that. Why do you think it was opposite? What was the turning point that made it? You mentioned the graphic nature of moles, the blips on the videotape just a few minutes ago. What was that turning point?
Well, I'll tell you right now, a couple of things. One, there were problems with the tape. But most importantly, here is, they never brought in the alleged victim in the case. And she went to, I can say this now, she went to the grand jury and testified, that's not me on the tape. And then her mother went to testify, that's not her on the tape, that's not her. Then her father went to the test, that's not her on the tape. And the government never brought her in to say otherwise, or at least show the jury the girl on the tape versus the girl in person. Never did that. Now, how do you, think about this now? Not just entertainment-wise, but in a court of law, our judicial system is based upon the premise that because the government has all of its resources and power behind it, they have to prove one of their citizens guilty beyond a reasonable doubt before you can take their freedoms away. How can you possibly have a young girl that you're saying is the victim of something as heinous as this and never bring her in for the jury to see? That's reprehensible. If you're truly trying to take freedom away from somebody, if you're really going to have them, and especially someone like R. Kelly, who's a known figure in the entertainment community, who has millions of dollars at stake, think about that. He could have lost millions upon millions of dollars in endorsements, and the government has a responsibility to prove its case. Yet they don't call the young girl in. I'm not here to denigrate real violence. I'm tired of real violence. I'm not here to denigrate sexual assault. I'm tired of seeing people sexually assaulted. These women out here need a voice for them. There's no question about it. But that's not what we were there for. We were there to determine whether or not the government could prove if Robert was the individual who did this to a particular young girl. Now that's what happened in the case. And the jurors came out and said it afterwards. See, what happened here is they brought in 18 or 19, right out here in Oak Park, witnesses that came in and said, I know her, and she was beautiful, and she was a lovely young girl, and for someone to do these things to her is terrible. And I started cross-examining each and every one of them. Not hard, but very, very, very softly. Tell me what you knew about her. And they went through and told her this is a lovely girl, wonderful girl, great girl. And then you see the tape, and that's a girl doing, if you watch it, that's the young girl doing some very adult, nasty thing. That couldn't be the same. And then for the government not to come in and bring her in here and at least show them to her. At the end of the case, when I stood up in my closing argument, I stood right in the well of the jury room, of the audience, and I asked the jury, they're asking you to convict him of doing this to this individual. Now look in this audience. Is she here? Is she here? And if you don't know, because they didn't bother bringing her in, how can you convict a man of something as heinous as this? And the jury understood that. There's a responsibility, government, and that's one of the problems with our people, and I see it day in and day out. They don't take that seriously. That government has a responsibility to us. They work for us, man. We don't live for them. Government's supposed to be there to protect us. When you talk about a congressional seat, that's our seat. That ain't Ted Cruz's seat. When you talk about a state's attorney, that ain't a state's attorney's seat. That's our seat. And when you talk about prosecuting a man for crimes that he's been charged with, man, those prosecutors are our prosecutors. And they better darn well make sure that they can prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, because it's our citizenship that we're talking about. And that's why I think R. Kelly's a very important case. Not because of the salaciousness and the dirtiness. That's what people want to talk about. But when you really start understanding the fundamental nature of what we are talking about when it comes to our legal system, this is too important to be cavalier. This is too important to take in a facetious manner. And that, so when people always ask me about art, and then I start preaching, and they say, man, I don't want to hear all that, man, I don't want to hear all that. So if you don't want to hear all that, I understand that. But that's the fundamental truth of who and what we have to understand where we are and we should be about.
off one as a friend of mine. You said, Greg, that I had a relationship. I have a relationship with Robert. He is one of my best friends for almost 30 years. And so I don't understand friendship like most people evidently understand friendship, where I'm somebody's friend and I enjoy all of all of their uptime, and then their downtime I dismiss them. That's not how I understand friendship. That's not how I understand family. So for me, um I can't really, I mean, I have a different perspective. Surely I have a different perspective. So everybody's like, throw them in the trash and get away from them. Throw them in the trash, get away from them. He should kill himself. All this. I don't feel that way. It was all kind of predictable, right? So Rob, for me, I've never experienced Rob in a never in a violent way. So me watching that, I promise, I was amazed. Like, what the fuck is this? What is this? Like, I'm watching it like, what is this? What are they talking about? I don't know Rob in a violent. I know Rob to be controlling of his environment. That's who he is. That's what he is. He's not the only one. Every famous person I know who runs a whole industry, they're like that. They're very controlling. Like, I didn't know them to be controlling to the extent that I heard about in those videos. So in essence, I was introduced to R. Kelly in that way. That's not Robert as I know him. I don't know him like that. I do know that, like I said, that he's controlling. I know over the years of all the things he did. I never imagine Rob to be a violent person, like beat somebody and stuff like that. And as I know Robert from a friend's perspective, that's where I know him from. The other R. Kelly stuff, I mean, I don't speak to that because I don't know that. I only know what I see in the media about that. So my response to that documentary when I saw it, first of all, let me say, I was contacted to be in a documentary. They contacted me when they were putting the documentary together. They asked me would I be in the thing. When I first got the call, I said, "Well, have you asked him? Is it about him?" Because I didn't know it wasn't called Surviving R. Kelly. They just said it's a documentary about R. Kelly, his life. We want to cover the full realm of his life. And we heard your name several times from several people that you were his best friend or whatever. Then I said, "Oh wow. Well, I'm supposed to talk to him later today. Have you asked him?" And then they said, "Well, not yet." Then I'm saying, "But why are you calling me first? It seems like you would ask him first." Instantly, I know what kind of thing it is if you haven't asked him and it's about him. And then they said, "Well, not yet. Do you plan to? Well, should, you know?" And then I said, "Well, I don't talk about Robert's private life publicly because that's his life. Let me ask him if he's okay with me talking about his life, and I'll let you know." That's what I said to the people. I didn't ask them. Later, the people, I avoided them. Didn't call me back. Didn't call me. The one girl was young who had called me younger. Then they had another. She's Mama Kim, Mama this, and I'm like, okay. They read something about me, so they tried to finagle me in. Then they had somebody call me back who addressed me as Dr. Delaney. Blah blah blah. She made, well, would you like to participate? What we want to do is full coverage, complete understanding of who he is. I said I'm not interested in being in anything that's not productive, not looking for a solution to something, or that's smashing. She said, "Oh no, we're going to cover the full of his life." So they came to Chicago. So I said, yes, I would do it because she said it's going to cover it full. They came to Chicago. I was scheduled to meet them that day. They sent me a text about lunch or something like that. But one of what made me, first of all, I asked a bunch of people that I respect, and they all said that I should not do it because whatever I say would be twisted. And it's not going to serve a greater purpose. These very important people I asked who said that whatever I say, that's what the media does. It's going to be twisted, and it won't have the effect that I desire. It won't help anybody. That's what everybody said except for one person. Then the lady called me and she said, "Yeah, can we get copies of your book?" She said, "This you should, really engage because this will increase the sales of your books." And that settled well with me. So on the day, that was the day before. On the day of, I was scheduled to go, and I I felt some kind of way about it. So I sent him a text message and said that I wasn't going to participate. And so I watched it. It was more of for me, it was more of a political, socio-political documentary more than it was just straight factual. Because when I looked at the music and the graphics, it was a straight up horror film, man. It was a horror film, and it was a well done horror film. I want, like, if I'm trying to scare the shit out of somebody, that's what it was. It spooked me. You know, the last episode when I cried for hours. I'm like, what was that? I text the lady that I know that I'm in contact with who started the Mute R. Kelly thing. She and I talk occasionally. We plan to have a conversation one day and talk about some things on camera to see, because I said, what you trying to do? What's productive out of this? We plan to have a conversation. Well, so I text her about something in the morning. I said, well, I don't know what that was that I just watched. Because that's not who I know. So this is all new for me. It was very emotional. And like I say, it was a spook thing. It's like, man, wow, the flaming things and the dun 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 music, all of this. And so it was very believable for me. And that night it was a hard thing for me. And what I got out of it for that night was that I'm gonna talk to Robert to convince Robert to make these people go home. This is not my first time. Before somebody said something, I said, man, send these people home. I don't care if they want to stay here. What I know for a fact is he don't hold. This is what makes it so hard. This is a touchy subject because women, I'm a woman. My daughter is 21. This is what I fight for. But it's a touchy subject because I would like just lay the truth out and let the truth deal. Then people don't have to grapple so much with inconsistencies, right? So if you watching all these other things, what happens is you get to see that it's too much, like you it's too extra. So when I'm watching the news and the news says like and he had a cult and he holding people captive, I'm like, we ain't holding nobody captive. I just seen them people. I was just down at the studio. Everybody, it's a party. Everybody's laughing and joking and funning. Everybody. This is captive. This is captivity. I left out the door. The doors was open. So when they first came out with that he's holding people prison, what? That's not true. Then it makes the whole thing seem kind of weird. Like so you can't really get to the truth. When I watched the documentary, it gave me different facts that I didn't know. The first facts I was given from the media, I knew those to be not true. He's not holding people captive. It's not what he does. That's not there. I've been there when other people are there and he's not even there. And the door is open. So we could all leave. That's like I left and came in and left out. If everybody can leave. So this is not a real thing. But so I have a problem with it being painted like the big boogeyman, the big monster boogeyman. This is what I know of Robert. That's problematic is the same thing that's problematic in pop culture. And it's not in this whole industry. It's not my way of life. I don't do threesomes. I don't do groupsomes. I don't do groupie. I don't do that. It's not my way. But there are a whole host of people who do. And it's legal. It's legal. We people could disagree with it, but that's legal. That's what people do. That's what they do. I've been knowing Robert for almost 30 years. My son is 29. I met Robert, my son was 1, a toddler. I've been in space with Rob with people holding the car door, chasing the cars. I've been in space with Rob. We had a party and somebody come over and take their dress off, butt naked, and pour a drink down their back and make their butt clap in front of our table. Just come over there. I've been in space. Rob lives in a different culture than me. He lives in a different world. It's very weird. It's a weird world, but it's a real world, right? And it cracks me up how what we do is apply our standards to his world. It cracks me up. People looking at marriage, and Dria's on there, and she's talking. I was there when Rob met Dria. So Dria's on there, and she's talking, and she's saying, my marriage. I'm thinking, That's not a proper image that people are applying to that marriage. That was not a traditional marriage. That wasn't that. So when people think of their marriage and my husband better be here by 8 and he did, that's not the kind of marriage she had. That's not, I mean, I'm not going to talk about that man's business, but anybody who knows Robert and knows her and knows what she knows, that's not the marriage she had. That's not, that's not, he didn't have that, a traditional kind of marriage like that. Robert, he's married to music. He was married to drill too, but Robert lives in the studio. He's in the studio all the time. Robert, I don't know. That's my personal thing, but that shouldn't be equated to anything I know about Rob because I don't know any of that of Rob. I've never seen Rob beating. I was just around Rob the other day, right? My sister and I just brought the New Year in with Rob. We was with Rob down there at a party. Everybody's laughing, fun, and having fun, laughing, cracking up. So, I mean, and just having fun. I don't know that part of Robert. I don't know.
Let me ask you, and I know Minister Mike, you had something you want to go ahead because it was just something.
Again, let me tell you though, I'm not saying this, I'm not saying nothing about truth. I'm saying that's not the way I know.
I hear you. I hear you loud, and I hear you clear, and I hear you not struggling, but trying to make sense out of this in pain.
Yeah.
In pain, because I hear it, and it's not orchestrated. There's not a slicing conversation where we had you on television,
right,
and we were interviewing you. We wouldn't hear this whole conversation. That's why I didn't do it. That's right. Because it would only be enough to whet the interest of look.
Have to live it again, you'll be okay with it. I don't have no secrets. I've never been victimized. And for the record, Rob did nothing bad to me, never victimized me. In fact, he built me up. He helped me to be better. That's what I understand. That's how I know him. So as I'm watching the women, they were saying that, but then there's another part they got to later that I didn't meet. That's all I'm saying. There's another part that I don't know.